Hello and welcome back to Eye on Marvel. My name is Peter Levi, and today we are going to catch up on the MCU News Digest I posted a couple of days ago. Actually, recorded this previously, but it needed to be redone. I'm sure you don't mind the slight pause. This is a fairly compact digest. There were some things that I thought it was timely to get out, so that's what we're doing. A link to the original article will be in the description down below, and let's get to it. So first up is just sort of a general comment from me about me, and just sort of where I'm at when it comes to the MCU. With this long gap between Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the upcoming Loki, I've had some time to think both about the first two Disney Plus offerings as well as sort of what's coming up with Marvel and some of the things that we're hearing. And I am very concerned. Um, this kind of drop in quality happened in Marvel Entertainment, specifically the Netflix stuff. Started off very strong, then there were some hiccups, and it got worse and worse and worse until it died. I think you can argue that other than the third season of Daredevil, um, all the efforts from it depends on who you are, from the Defenders onward, or if you hate Iron Fist, from Iron Fist onward, are weak to bad, except for Daredevil season three. And I don't think the MCU will ever be quite that bad, but its Disney Plus offerings have been mediocre and filled with problems there is no excuse for. Um, they are both suffused with bad writing. And if there's no quality control on the Disney Plus shows, it makes me concerned there's no quality control on the films either, and that we're going to get a giant clusterfuck in phase four. I hope that's not the case. I've never really felt pessimistic about Marvel until now, but seeing what we've seen and then seeing the rubber stamping from within the Marvel community, the people who talk about it, is very worrying, and I'm just curious to see what happens. So it's sort of sounding an alarm for me personally. Let's hope Loki is fantastic. Black Widow is good. I don't think it can be fantastic, but it could be good, and that will assuage my fears. But I can tell you, broadly speaking, about 70%, 75% of the MCU properties coming up, I have no interest in on the surface. And a lot of that is the IP they chose to pursue. But yeah, that is a tough hill to climb when you are pushing the button of obscure or less popular material and you're opening salvos for such material uh, with WandaVision and Falcon have been weak. So let's hope that I can look back on this and say, boy, I was just a little too put off by the opening salvo, and it's fine. But certainly the trend to me suggests we are about to see a dip in quality unprecedented within Marvel. So more sort of straightforward news stuff. We had the Hollywood Reporter story about Blade. Now here's the quote. Marvel isn't rushing with Blade, whose start date was pushed from this September to July 2022, so the studio can spend more time working on the script. So this is PR spin. You don't push a release date for 10 months just to pretty it up. You push a release date because things aren't working. Clearly, they had planned for a September production beginning. To change that is expensive. It requires a lot of rescheduling. And that implies to me that the script is a mess. That the script is like the Black Widow script, where Marvel had to go through 2 emergency rewrites and a delay in production to fix it. Now, whether Marvel has learned a lesson here about who to hire as their writers before they go forward with production, I do not know, but I hope so. The original scriptwriter is from Lindelof's The Watchmen, a series that won a lot of awards but looked god awful. Um, Lindelof, of course, is pretty notorious for a lot of terrible productions. But that being said, we haven't seen the script. We don't know the story, so we can't be sure. What I'm curious about is, was this decision to push it off for almost a full year Marvel's, or did Mahershala Ali see it and go, Jesus fucking Christ, what am I about to make? No way. We simply don't know. Mahershala has more power than a lot of lead actors would have at Marvel because he asked for Blade, so it was put on the slate for him. So that suggests to me he has a lot of power. But delaying this is a bad thing. Mahershala is an older actor. He's 47, going to be playing an action hero, and certainly with uh, like you can be an actor and carry that forward into your 50s. If you're Sylvester Stallone and you're mostly made of steroids, you can do it even later. But most people start you see with Don Cheadle, you see that degeneration. The body just starts to break down, and so performing that kind of thing, Mahershala has a short window. So by pushing this even further, you're shrinking that window down. So I'd love to hear more about this story. I don't expect to. No one in the Marvel space is going to look into it at all. They will accept what they have been told and move on. But yeah, this is pretty major. I'm pretty excited for Blade. I think Mahershala is an amazing actor, and despite his age, is a great choice for the film. But that doesn't guarantee we're going to get something good. We have to wait and see. So next up, we had some more fluff. This time from Variety. It was pumping the tires of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, based on something called T-Vision ratings, which is yet another U.S. only data set. This is something the trade seem to only want to pay attention to, based on just 5,000 households. Um, to me, you got to come up with something better, Variety. This is why I call it a puff piece. That's weak sauce. This means absolutely nothing. What I will say, with like better data, Nielsen has the show through week 4, and it is number 1 among the various streaming shows. It's a good sign. But what I'm really curious about, because I expect MCU properties to rank high. What I want to see is, do we get the same falling off a cliff that we had with WandaVision after the show completes? Or is Falcon going to enjoy repeat viewings so that it remains on the streaming top lists for a while? Because if you've never looked, oftentimes the top 10 for streaming, if you compare both original programming with reruns, the reruns are usually at the top, and they certainly occupy a lot of the top slots. So people do like to go back and revisit things if they enjoy them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. James Gunn has intimated he's done at Marvel once Guardians 3 is finished. This could be a negotiating tactic, or it could simply be a matter of fact that he's come back to complete a trilogy and then he's gone. Personally, I'm quite content if he is gone. I think Guardians, he benefited a lot from the original script writer and more oversight. In Guardians 2, where he could do what he wanted, it's a much weaker film. It's overly long, the dramatics don't work. I suspect we'll see more of the same in Guardians 3, since he had the same level of control. Have to wait and see, but my guess is he's just going to go over to the WB and do whatever he wants, so long as those properties are successful. Some rumors from Daniel. These are not from his junk rumor file. These are things he thought worthy enough to give them their own entries. He says Shuma Gorath will appear in an upcoming MCU project, but doesn't specify which. This is the character that's floated around in the rumor mill for a while. Originally WandaVision, then Doctor Strange 2. But none of these rumors have come from anyone notable, so grains of salt. He believes Monica Rambeau will appear in Doctor Strange 2. Given the number of characters who are supposed to appear in this film, if she does, it has to be a cameo. There isn't screen time for anything else. As such, I don't really care. However, I would take this as a rumor because it is cluttered, and I don't know what you're going to do with her. Maybe she's part of a teaser that links the film to something else. That's possible. Finally, he says Marvel is considering a person of color for Hercules. This would not surprise me. Gilgamesh in the Eternals stands out here. Marvel does not really care about cultural considerations outside of an American context, and as you could see in Netflix, no one really cares about characters of Greek ethnicity. Um, the other thing is when Marvel does these sort of flips, it tends to be on lesser known IP, and Hercules absolutely qualifies as lesser known IP. You are not leaning toy sales on Hercules, so you're very safe in changing it if you want to. Now, one sort of puzzling thing about this rumor is if Zeus is played by a white guy, you would think, because it's Russell Crowe, you would think Hercules would probably follow, but maybe not. We see this sort of inconsistency with Asgardians, so it just depends. I just can't remember if in Marvel Zeus and Hercules are related or not. I don't remember what the association is. So if they're not related, it wouldn't really matter. Sutton says Nova and Captain Marvel will face Galactus in the future, although he doesn't know in what project. This is ringing a bell with me now that he said something like this in the past, probably in his big May scoopathon, but I haven't checked it. Regardless, this is not an idea that sounds like it would come to fruition anytime soon. And I suspect it will depend quite a bit on how well the Marvels repairs Carol Danvers' image. Um, it's very obvious that the MCU is aware she was not that well received. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a change in directors and we wouldn't have a change in title. You are moving away both from the brand and you're moving away from the people responsible for the brand that suggests you want to change things. But in what way? I have no idea. We will need a very good script for the Marvels. The current state of Marvel writing is not encouraging, but one never knows. Finally, we had a 4chan supposed scoop about Thor 4. I don't want to dig through it. I'll just sort of sum it up by saying while nothing about it is necessarily obviously implausible, it doesn't strike me as a very good storyline, and it doesn't have the kind of specifics you would expect from someone with access. I think the Eternals leak is a very good example of what full access would give you and the kind of noodly detail that can crop up. This doesn't have that. What it does do is repeat a couple of themes we've seen in leaks, supposed leaks from 4chan and Reddit. One, Sif dying. That's been in most of them. Two, minor role for Valkyrie. In both cases, though, the specifics of those things have been all over the place. Just because these things have cropped up a lot does not make them true. I think a smaller role for Valkyrie makes sense anyway, just because of the amount of time available, screen time. You have to introduce Thor, the Thor version of Jane Foster. You're going to have to put time for Gore, Christian Bale's character. There's a lot of time that has to go to other characters who aren't Valkyrie. But yeah, sadly, this doesn't include my favorite possibility of Valkyrie dying. Alas, I think she, just like the Young Avengers, is inevitable and we'll just be stuck with her. But yeah, I don't buy it, but you can read it at your leisure. So that's it for that particular slate of things. I am nearly done another one of these. Some pretty big news has come out in the last couple of days that I think is worth addressing. So I'm working on that. I also have been thinking about doing a little revisor on my Scooper article, specifically related to the quote unquote big four from the last few years. Jeremy Conrad, now gone, Charles Murphy, Daniel Richtman, and Mikey Sutton. Still thinking about that though. Haven't made up my mind there. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so that one, because it's not started, wouldn't necessarily be soon unless I want to do a little video summary. But yeah, next up definitely I think would be the next news digest. So until next time, I hope you are well, and we will see you then.